In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
Hi, we are glad you could join us this evening. We are recording this program. It's benefiting some more from our experiences. Right after this week's program, benefiting from some of our experiences. And we just are glad that you've joined us, and maybe you've watched the other one and now you're watching the sequel. So ladies, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and so that we can make this recording. And I hope to be traveling when we're playing this. Sometime if you're seeing it, then maybe I'm traveling. So I've got several trips planned this fall. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So thank y'all so much for joining us with us this evening. We're talking about and trying to give you, younger women, the experience, or rather the benefit of our experiences. And before the program, in between the recordings, Beth and I were talking, because Beth is my oldest daughter, but still, of course, the favorite, because, everybody's got to be the favorite. Somebody's got to be the favorite. Might as well be Beth. But, and you know how they say you try everything out on your oldest, and then by the time you get to the youngest, you figure things out pretty good. But one of the things I said, I wanted to be sure I got to tell this lesson. When you get upset with your mother, treat her like a stranger. Act like you don't even know her. How would you act toward her? How would you speak to her? I've often said that mothers and daughters you should treat your mother, especially as you get older, like you would a roommate. If you were a housemate, you wouldn't just go off and never say a word to them if they were expecting you back for a meal, or you wouldn't just stay on for a day or two and never say, hey, I'm doing this. So uh, treat her, especially when you're upset. Think about, now, how would I act if she were a stranger? So I wondered what anybody else had thought about that one. Beth, be sure to unmute yourself. So we want to hear your take on this as well.
Well, I agree. I think it goes for everybody. I find that when we get home, we just be whoever, just be ourselves or whatever, and we don't restrain ourselves from the politeness that we give to other people and the people that are closest to you in your life. I mean, yeah, you absolutely should treat them at least as good as strangers. But a
Yeah.
lot of times we don't. I think I don't know why we don't, but we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think children need to be taught that. My mom was very lenient, fun mom. That my friends all loved my mom because she was just fun and she didn't have a lot of rules. But I remember that was one thing: you better not say anything that is close to disrespectful. And I did that. I don't know that I had ever. I don't recall really getting in trouble with my mom until I was in about, I'm sure I did maybe at times, but it wasn't very often. But I was in seventh grade, and you get a little mouthy then.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something. I said, "Yes, ma'am," or something. And boy, she was always real nice, but that was zero tolerance, and she grounded me. And I learned that lesson, and I think it's really important. All of those of us who have kids, I mean, when you're 80 and you're not very mobile, or you don't not feeling good, you don't want your kids to feel like they can say stuff to you.
Yeah.
And so we need to instill that when they're from day one.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that, it's that old saying familiarity breeds contempt. You know, we just, what we're most used to, we take for granted. And I think that was something that not just like we wouldn't say anything about or to my mother that was sassy or to my dad that was sassy because the other parent would be the one that says, don't you ever let me hear you say something like that again about your mother, or don't you ever let me hear. And then it would be a long litany of all the things that mom or dad does for us on a daily basis without complaint, and how dare you treat them like they're not someone special. And I think,
Amen.
you know, that's one of those things that when the parent sticks up for the other. So we as moms can stand up for the dad, unlike what they see every day on TV, where the dad is the dolt and he, you know, can't tie his shoes without his wife, you know, making note of what an idiot he is. And I think, you know, young people pick that up. They see that, and of course, everybody in the laugh track laughs at it, so it must be funny.
Right. Got to be. Gigi, is that the kind of thing that you see with kids that you teach or at school?
Yeah. You know, growing up, I was always taught to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. But here in the West, you know, it's a little different, that they don't really say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not being respectful, but I do see less respect just, you know, in general. And in my classroom, my students are always respectful because I teach them respect. But the input that I wanted to put on this is that I just think that it's important that I have a teenage son, that they know that they can come talk to us. So I'm like, if I'm ever being like too hard and you feel like I'm just not understanding you can always respectfully ask me a question, you know, because, you know, I'm just the kind of person that's like, hey, if I said it, it's going to be this way. And so I have to be careful with that a little bit and try not to like close any doors with my son. He's so respectful. And so I'm like, hey, you know, if you do ever need to say something, just respectfully say, hey, mom, can I ask you a question respectfully? And then we can talk it out and work through that. So that's my thing. I don't like a bad attitude. And as long as it can be respectfully done, I'm good. So
I think that's so much the key that that other generations, perhaps older generations than mine, missed out on. It was like you just can never say anything negative, opposite of what your parents say. And I never was like that. It was like, if you disagree with me, we can talk about it. That may not change the decision, but we can at least talk about it. I can understand your viewpoint.
Well,
right.
That's biblical.
Yeah.
You know, if you have something against someone or something has something against you, then you are required to go talk to them about it. Whether you're the one that feels offended or you're the one that's hurt somebody else, it's your responsibility when you realize that you need to go talk to them. And that's a way we model, you know, approaching someone when things aren't right, because that's really hard as adults to do. But if we teach our kids to do that, and they can do it with us, who are the authority figure in their lives that God put there, then they'll be able to do it with their friends, and they'll be able to do it with a teacher that they're having problems with, or anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, I've been wrong before. I've thought one thing and really it was something different. And I think that it's important, like, for parents that are still raising children to say, I'm sorry if you're wrong. So I've had to do that before and say, oh, I got onto you and I'm sorry for that. I didn't know it was this way. I'm happy you explained. And I think that builds a deeper relationship with your child when you do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. One thing
to say, I'm sorry that I allowed you with this. We're going to correct that right now too. we've had to bring it, you know, from both sides, overreacting to something, but also underreacting to something. As parents, we can go back and correct that. And when we can tell our kids, I'm not perfect, I messed up. I mean, you know, we're modeling that for them.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the things that Beth and Philip did that was so impressive to me with their children was that they established the Bible system of authority. When I was a kid, it was because I said so.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with, the parents' ability or maybe I'm smart, maybe I know more about that, because I said so. But I can remember Beth saying to their children, and I'm sure Philip too, that, well, this is our responsibility. God has given us this responsibility. It's not because we're better than you or smarter than you, or it's just, this is what God has given to us to do. And what your part is to obey us. And it just, I don't know, it just makes it so smooth and just so clear,
Yes. Yeah.
So
I love that they put the Bible in it. I think that it has to be the center. Like, I try to do the same thing. I'm like, hey guys, listen, I'm a working mom, but my number one job is in this home. And I'm supposed to make sure that everything's picked up and everything's running the way it's supposed to. You guys got to help me because I want to go to heaven. So as a working mom, I always tried to set up things like that so that they understood, hey, I'm working outside of the home, but my number one job is here. And it's important that we all work together and that you guys help me get to heaven and be respectful and honor the things that I'm asking you to do. And let's just respect each other through this so we can all get to heaven together. I just think we need to talk like that. So I really like that, Beth. That's so good. Yeah.
I always like that one. Okay, who's got another lesson they want to be sure that we get out there?
Well, I have one that we touched on last time that I wanted to kind of revisit because we didn't spend much time on it. But if I had it to do over again, I would be even more strict about technology use with my kids.
Yeah.
We were very... my oldest daughter, we had one TV program that she watched Mr. Rogers and then Wishbone. I don't know if anybody remembers those programs, but he was a little Jack Russell Terrier and he did classic literature and it was wonderful. But, and then as she got older, some of the Veggie Tales. Okay. But today, one of the things that breaks my heart is when I see a parent, their child is fidgeting or whatever in a restaurant, and they take their phone and turn on the games and hand a smartphone to a child that's 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, because, I see the other end of that as a college professor. I see kids that are so addicted to technology that they have trouble giving eye contact to other human beings. I see, we have really, neuroscientists tell us that we have reworked the way the brain works in young people. They really do see the world differently and think differently than the way we were raised in kind of a linear thinking thing. It's troubling. And one of the things that I have read about recently is that the executives in Silicon Valley do not allow their children to use technology until they are 12 years old because they've seen what's happened. Yeah. They send their children to private schools that use no technology, whatever, until a child is 12 years old. Now, if these are the people that are making tons and tons of money off of technology and they don't want their children using it, it sounds a lot to me like the tobacco industry. They were willing to make all kinds of money off of everybody else smoking, but they didn't smoke and their children were never going to smoke. And I really think that, instead of us keep going down this dark trail that leads to who knows where with pornography use and video game addiction and, all of the things that can happen, that if we could just wait. I know when we sent our kids to school, our kids didn't have a phone until they could drive. Because, if they couldn't, we took them everywhere they went. They were at school with people that we trusted. And then when the school said, okay, everybody pull out your phones. And my kid said, I don't have a phone. And the school calls home and says, your child's going to need. I said, oh, no, my child will not need. I said, we all learned without smartphones.
Mhm.
I am not going to give my 9-year-old a smartphone.
So what were the ramifications of that? Did they back down and say, okay, or
Mhm.
did your child suffer for academically for not having a phone?
No. No.
Mm-mm.
That's good.
No, they just
That's
figured that there was something else that she could do to get the same thing. I mean, they don't have to look stuff up on Google. They can go down to the library
Yeah.
like we used to do.
Yeah.
Learn how to use a library.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
Uh-huh. That's so
But
good.
it really does concern me. It's not a babysitter. It's not a good babysitter. It's not a substitute for a human being. Kids need to learn to use their own imaginations. They don't need to have professionals tell them how to think.
Mhm.
Right. And then, to go along with that, as a mom, one of the trainings that I had to do at the end of the school year, the district hired a guest speaker to come in that her daughter's a brain surgeon and she studies the brain too. And one of the things that they found was they did a study on babies with their mother and cell phone usage. And one of the studies that they found to be true was when a baby, they did a study where they videoed a baby and the mom. And when the phone rang, they had previously had like five minutes of footage where the baby was interacting with the mom. And as soon as the baby heard the phone ring, the baby looked away, like my mom is disconnected from me and she's not interested in me right now. And so I think as parents too, we have to watch how much we have that thing in our hand. After hearing that, I was like, I might be a little too respectful of everybody else and not my own family when someone texts me and I'm like, oh, I better get right back with them. It's okay to put it in the washroom or wherever and shut the door and not look at it and take your smartwatch off and give your family the undivided attention that they need. So I think I really like that you brought that point out. I think it's something that may be so common to people to naturally do that we need to bring out and say, hey, not so much, right? Like, I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
We tell kids, younger people now, in my generation, we say, we were free range people. We'd leave our mom's home to drive back to college. Nobody knew where we were, until we got back to the school and would call, that collect, of course, that we had actually gotten back. I mean,
after 11. We had to call after 11 because that's when the phone rates were cheaper for the distance.
But I think I found when I was still in school, which was 15 years ago, working, that the kids were afraid without their phones. They would come in and mine was a K3 school and they would have phones. Some of them would bring cell phones and they were not allowed to have them in the classroom. They had to bring them to the office and we would mark them and have we put them, but I need my phone. No, you don't need your phone. But what if something happens? I said, we're adults. We're taking care of you. And it was, it felt so odd to me that the parents were almost instilling a fear in the children that other adults were not competent to take care of them. I don't know what that was just the feeling I had. And we had parents come in, my child needs my phone. What if there's a shooting at school? I said, we're adults.
Well, it's separation anxiety, but it used to be separation anxiety was attached to a child with its mother or its father, not its cell phone. But it really is. They're suffering from separation anxiety.
Yeah. It was.
But as parents, I see a lot of people like that too. I know if I leave my house without my phone, I definitely go back and get it because I need my phone. It's important. Yeah. It doesn't not really logical, but it just feels like you need to have it.
Yeah. So many things that we justify the need for it because we look things up and we, use maps and all of that.
I'm just so old that I turn my cell phone off at worship. And then 3 days later, I realized, I never turned my phone back on. And I've got messages and people are looking for me like, what's wrong with that thing? I'm like,
it's not because you're old. It's not old. It's that you were talking to the people that were with you.
Yeah.
Instead of checking your phone, you were talking to your husband and your friends and the lady in the grocery store, and maybe even being a vessel for the message of Christ. It's not just that you're old, it's that
No.
you're thinking a
Well,
little more
yes.
deeply.
Yeah.
Do I really need this thing? I
maybe.
turn it off and
Thanks,
I don't
Pauline.
really care.
Thanks,
if
Pauline.
I
That's
come
kind of
back
you.
to it.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, Gigi, you were talking about this experiment that they had. I read, or I saw one of those, not a TED talk, but something similar about a speaker, and he said, if we see your phone, if the people you're with, if they see your phone, even though you said, well, I'm going to put my phone down here, I'm not going to look at my phone. Just the fact that it's out, that it's there, shows that you care more about that phone than you do the people you're with. In a way, you're disrespecting those people because, the implication is I'm going to answer the phone before I'm going to, talk to you. And even if you look and swipe no, still you looked. That just really made an impact on me. I said, I hadn't thought about it like that before. So maybe.
Really good point.
Yeah. There are some
One of the
people
reasons that
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the reasons that we restricted TV for our kids, and of course, any video games and phones, we restricted all that, not because you couldn't find some wholesome content. It was that we didn't want them wasting their time watching someone else having an adventure. And so, watching somebody else build a cool raft, go out and build your own terrible raft that sinks. At least you had that experience. And that's what we did with our kids. And growing, now they have to have a perfect ball field, uniforms, all the gear. Yeah, I mean, if any of you played sports growing up, it was like second base is that piece of a cup out there, and the first base is a pine cone. Yeah. And the ball, if you're playing kickball, the ball's half flat. Well, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of watching somebody or waiting until all the coaches are there and it's all this controlled thing, just go enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Kathleen, what I'm hearing and what we're all saying is our advice would be, from our experiences, is put away that phone. Don't give it to a child that's young. I think 12 sounds like a really good time. But it's, we have to resist. Let them have other ways. Help your children find other ways to get the information that they need.
And the research shows they're no further behind because the kids learn so quickly. It's not like a kid who gets a cell phone at 6 is going to be ahead in technology from a kid who gets it at 12. That 12-year-old's going to pick it up really quickly, and then they're fine.
Yeah.
And don't don't let the phone be more important than your child.
Yeah.
I see people doing that, sitting there, and the child, there's the kid's swimming or something, and the parents just doing this, or they're playing ball, and the kid, just put it away.
Yeah.
They know what's more important.
Yeah.
They grow up from day one. They know that's the phone is. Oh, well, that phone is more important than me.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think it's important that, I know there's all kinds of viewers looking at this, and I know that there's some that are like disagreeing, and the advice I would give to any parent is, if you are going to do that, if you are going to let your child have a cell phone or let them watch more TV than has been suggested here tonight, I would say at least watch it with them and monitor closely, for that other perspective that other people may have. I know there's been some TV shows that my teenager has wanted to see, and some I'm like, no, and others I'm like, you know what, let's watch that together. And this will be a teachable moment throughout this TV show that we're going to watch together. And let's look at some of these things that you may be introduced to by a friend that I can be the first one to put that righteous perspective on for you. So I think that it's so important to monitor it, and whether you don't let your child have a phone till they're a certain age or you do, monitor it carefully. I will say I have kindergartners that have better phones than me. I would not recommend that. Like, wow. So better phones than me, the latest iPhones, and I'm just like, wow. I'm with you either. Like, what's up? So
Yeah. What in the world's going on? So, all right. Beth, what would you like to share with our viewers? What experience or lesson would you say?
Well, one of my big ones, and I talk about this a lot now just because, is I wish that I had been more thankful when I was younger, that I had appreciated every moment. There were days like, you go through your day and one bad thing happens and you're like, oh, this day is horrible. And you don't think about the 5 billion good things that happen.
Right.
Just that one bad thing, or just that you generally don't feel good or whatever. I think it goes back to kind of what you were talking about earlier with like having a smile. And when we let our mind constantly go to the negative things, we convince ourselves that we're just definitely unhappy. I think we can control how we feel about that. And I was looking in Acts 27, where Paul was he was a prisoner. He's on the ship that's in a storm, and it's going to wreck, and it's bad, and it's just horrible. But you see right in the middle of that, about verse 35, he says, let's eat. And then, then they go and they end up on the land, but he blesses, or he prays to God and is thankful for the food. And I think that even in the midst of life's storms, even when things seem really super horrible, there's always something. There's always some blessing in the midst of that storm somewhere. And I feel like I wish that I had at a younger age looked harder for those blessings in the storms.
Right.
And that's something I talk about it a lot, but that's my big thing now, because I just feel like I wasted too much time being unhappy. About things, and there are so many blessings. One of the things I do, I think it drives my family crazy, but whenever anyone's like, "Oh, today stunk. This happened. That happened." Oh, okay. Tell me 5 good things that happened. Little things. Yeah. The sun is shining. There's a little lizard, crawling across the, I don't know, just anything. Like I can breathe, take deep breaths without any kind of pain. There's all kinds of things that we just take for granted every single day. And there's just so many blessings. And I wish that at a younger age, I had focused on that more, because I feel like I kind of wasted time just deciding I was going to be bummed out for no really good reason.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Go ahead. Someone else was about to make a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say, we're surrounded by so much negativity in the world, and we don't want to perpetuate that.
No.
Right.
And if we're thankful and we display that and we talk about it out loud in front of our kids, that's an opportunity for us to bring some light.
Absolutely. What Beth said, it goes right with something that I was hoping we would discuss, and it was the one on the mind. I think that those two can go hand in hand. Anything that pops in our mind, we need to stop and practice. There's a big word, metacognition. Let's stop and think about what we're thinking about. And I just really think that your mind, that's the key centerpiece. And today there's so many that struggle with mental health, and validly so, and they have to take medication. Some do and some don't. And I would just say that it's so important that as a young person, as parents, that we really stress to build up our children's mental strength as much as we can. And like you're saying, Beth, like teach them, be thankful. That really can make you so happy if you just stop and say, okay, this thought just popped in my mind. Taking every thought captive, as Paul mentions. We need to just stop and say, okay, I have 2 ways to look at this thought. I can lean on the negative side, or I can be positive in this. And I can think about the bright side. It could be worse. That's one thing that I try to, anything bad that I feel may happen to me, I try to say, hey, what could be worse? Something else could be worse. Someone else is going through something worse, and I can be thankful in this moment as well. So I just think that it's really important to build up the mental strength of our children and of ourselves as parents, That's the number one thing. And the number one way to have that mental strength is to stay in the Word. I tell you, the days that I rush into my day and I don't pick up my Bible, I'm a lot more unhappy, just nagged than I am the days that I start my day with the scriptures. It just sets it off right. So I love that, Beth. Just that mental mindset of I will be thankful.
That's good. That's good. Kathleen, you've shared with Colleen. How about you? What would you like to share with our viewers?
Well, one of the questions or the comments that you sent us, I thought was interesting. It said, this is not me talking, but it said, quote, value your education and aim for success. When I was younger, I acted like I had no care in the world, and now I'm paying the consequences. I agree with this. And what I say is take the difficult analytical courses. That way, if let's just say you are college bound, you'll get there and they will make you take your freshman year. They'll make you take a bunch of courses that you don't really want to take, but you don't know what they are. And then you find this thing. It's like you find the career you want, and then you go and you look in the course catalog and you see what you have to take to get that as a major. And you see, oh, I got to have chemistry. Oh, I got to have calculus. Oh, I didn't take any of those in high school. And it may not be that it really has a lot to do with the major, but what they're doing is they're seeing if you can do that analytical work. So when they put the calculus in there, say you want to be a financial advisor or something, they put that calculus or chemistry in there. It doesn't mean you're going to use calculus chemistry every day, but it probably means they want to make sure that you can think analytically. And what it boils down to is that you need to be able to earn a living. And you need, those courses will help you get a job where somebody needs you and where you can get a living, make a living. You never know. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You get married and your husband's got a great job. He may be disabled. I've seen so many things. And I just say when you have time, go to school but take hard courses, and find out what it's going to pay. Because you need to pay your way through this world.
Yeah.
It's fun to take art. It's great. I love that stuff. I love the arts. I mean, I majored in that type of stuff, but I'm here to tell you that I didn't let my kids do that.
I love that, Colleen. One of the big things when my husband and I got married was he said, it's important to me that you have your education. So I was in college at the time, but I wasn't done. And he was my number one fan. He was like, if something happens to me, I want you to be able, we're going to have kids one day. That's our hope, our dream. I want you to be able to take care of yourself if anything were to happen, God forbid, but we have to think realistically. And he's like that. He's a planner. So every day I'm thankful for that. And, it's opened up doors, and I use it as an avenue to shine my light and reach the lost. And I've been able to do that a few times. And again, everything we do, we should do it to glorify God. So I love that, Colleen. Thanks for bringing that one up.
And if you do lose your spouse, if you can keep the family together and you can make enough money to support the kids and yourself without your spouse, then you're not looking around for some creep to marry.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but that happens. And I would like to think that if I had died, and I'm sure I thought this, that my husband could keep the house together, kids together, and would not be desperate to go find somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think too, even if something doesn't happen, if you are a stay-at-home mom, if you decide that you're, helping your children with their homework, or if you decide to homeschool, I mean, you don't want to be the kind of person who says, oh, my kid's in 7th grade now, and I don't understand the math they need to do, so I have to farm my homeschooled child somewhere else. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with getting other people to help you, but the idea here is an education is never wasted, even if you don't go out and have a career. Expanding your mind and learning how to think so that you have ingenuity. I mean, there are so many things that will happen in your life that if you don't have two bits of information in your head to rub together, you don't even know what to look up in your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of kids think, why do I need to put that in my brain? It's in my hand, in my phone.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to have those creative juices flowing. You have to have those bits of information. That's why the liberal arts are so valuable, even to people who go into the STEM. You know, people. Med schools are looking at young people who have, you know, art in their background and music in their background and did more than just here's all the math and the science classes, because they can think more creatively and critically and thinking.
And they've read the great books.
Right.
Yeah.
The good literature. It's everybody keeps reading it for a reason. They're old,
Right.
and yet we keep teaching those because nobody's coming up with anything better.
I just finished David Copperfield. I've gone through that before. I mean, it's not the first time, but it was if you have a young daughter or son, try to get them to read that, because it's a young man. One of the themes is he realizes slowly that he made a bad choice in a wife. But you watch him, and you know he's doing it. But then you watch him, and he comes to terms with all the stuff that everybody else said, and it's such a. I mean, it's Dickens. I mean,
Classic.
That's right. It's classic. Well, and I'd like to say a word about vocational education and on the job type training. You know, we still have to, even if we immediately go to work, or if we go to a vocational school. I mean, I've got a college education, you know, all of you have, and we just are glad to have it. But there are so many people who learn to work, and that education, that on-the-job training, that vocational education is very important as well. And then there are people that don't go to any school except, as we used to call it, the school of hard knocks. And that education is very valuable. We started out our last program talking about how we can use our experiences to help others. And that's part of the education that we have. And all of that, I think, is something that we need to value, and don't just take it for granted. Like, yeah, okay, if I do this job, but if you don't learn while you're doing that job, then you're sort of wasting your time in a sense, and you're not adding on some knowledge or skill that you can use later on to get a better job or to help teach your children. So, you know, all in all, just whatever things that you learn are valuable to you, and we need to, and I like that. If you don't learn as you go, whether it's college education, a vocational education, whether it's a Bible classes that we have in our worship services and all, if we aren't learning as we go, there's a whole lot of wasting time that we're doing. So
absolutely,
has had to leave us, and I know she was going to have to drop away. Her husband was coming home with the children and all, and our time is kind of coming to an end. So are there any short things that you all had in mind you wanted to be sure that you got to say tonight? Nope, everybody's good.
Just really quickly, establishing spiritual habits before you end up joining yourself to someone else in marriage.
Yes.
If you, for all your life, have prayed daily, set aside a time for prayer, set aside a time for Bible reading, set aside a time, you know, whenever it is, then when you join together, you know that that's something that's a part of your life that you're going to miss. You know, my husband and I have been throughout our life, we sort of change. We will sing with our family, and then that sort of peters out. And then we'll do some Bible, and then that sort of, because neither one of us had an established routine. We were in it whenever we felt like putting it together when we could fit it in.
Yes.
But when you join yourself to someone else, you need to establish those things instead of just waiting for them to happen. That's
Yes.
not the way it works. It doesn't
That
work
is good
that way.
advice.
I'm saying it can work. Be in it however you can, but if you establish it as a routine and a habit that you would miss horribly if it weren't there, that's what you're looking for.
And write it down. Write it down like your business model, so that, and then revisit it so it doesn't get fuzzy in your minds.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. I have always regretted that I did not have the habit of reading through the Bible, even on an annual basis. I know that's one of the things I admire about Beth and Philip is that they read through the Bible in a year, and I just think that's great. I've tried. I almost made it one time, but I find myself, studying topics or individual books rather than reading it all the way through. But I love that. Make a plan, write it down. Don't just hope it'll happen, but really, work on it. I know we all have many more things, and we'll think of them later. I wish I'd said so, but maybe another time. So, but thank you all so much for being with us this evening. I really appreciate it, and thank you all viewers. Hope that you have gotten some wisdom from this program and something that will help you in your lives. So, thank you all so much, and good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.